name is Avril Daly. I'm the CEO of Retina International, and I'm also a person living with retinitis pigmentosa.
What are currently your most important struggles in the field of rare diseases?
There are many struggles in the area of rare diseases. The recognition of rare diseases as a public health priority has been done with respect to the development of national plans and strategies across Europe, and that's very important. But many are not implemented. Many of the recommendations within those plans are not implemented in all countries. We have some very good examples. For example, the Italian and the French example in particular is a leading light for other countries who are struggling to implement their recommendations, and knowing that the French are on their third plan while other countries are on their first plan, I think shows the disparity that there is within the European Union and Europe at large with respect to understanding the needs of patients with rare diseases. For me, in my role in Retina International, the most particular issue that we're finding right now is the lack of understanding of the importance of genetic testing for inherited retinal diseases. This is something that probably isn't well considered, not only from the perspective of governments from a funding perspective, but as a necessity. It's often viewed within policy, within the national healthcare systems, with policymakers and legislators, as something that's really just a luxury, and that genetic testing for inherited disease in general, and in particular for rare eye disease, should only be provided when there is a treatment. And we as a patient community do not believe that that's true, because as patients living with these diseases, we understand the difference that a genetic test can bring, the results of which can have a huge impact in families, with individuals, on how they live their lives and the choices that they make day to day. It is extraordinary now that we know so much about genetic testing, and there are so many different types of genetic testing that are leading to really specific and thorough results that show that people who have lived all their lives thinking that they had one condition discover they have something else, and that there could be something for them to do to take action every day to improve their outcomes. That's very important. And trying to make policymakers or enable policymakers to understand the importance is a little tricky within the community for rare eye diseases, because unlike other genetically inherited diseases, rare eye diseases have within the retina particularly, there's about 270 genes involved. With other rare diseases, it's not so complicated because there are a smaller amount of genes involved. So, we have a lot of complexity within the IRD community when it comes to genetic testing and making the argument, but we have a strong argument because of the complexity of our conditions as well, and we shouldn't shy away from it or be afraid of it. When we discuss it, we're still discussing genetics in all of us within the community and outside of the community as a very novel area, as an area that's emerging, that in some cases, still is a little way off in the future. The reality is genetics is here. It's a necessity in the healthcare systems, in any healthcare system. It's becoming more and more important in the delivery of care for not only rare diseases, but other conditions like cancers and cardiac disease, because they're being described, further and further as rare diseases as well. So we need to change the dialogue around how we discuss genetics. It's not in the future, it is now, and it's essential.
In your opinion, what is the most important issue ERN-EYE could overcome?
To my original point about the real challenges that exist within the rare disease community, for rare eye diseases, I still think it's my opinion, and certainly my opinion is influenced by the patients that we represent. They would say the lack of access to genetic testing, the disparity in access to genetic testing is a real problem. And that's a problem, and that I believe patients, clinicians, scientists, policymakers, and allied health professionals can really, really work together to resolve. It's very important that we work together, that we use the same terminologies, the same language when we're discussing genetic testing and genetic services and clinical genetics as they pertain to ophthalmology and rare eye disease. That's really important. So the ERN-EYE provides us with a fantastic platform to discuss these issues that are general in the rare disease community, but very important within our community. That's really important. The other challenge within the context of genetics and clinical services within the area of genetics is the lack of understanding of what a genetic counsellor is, what a genetic counsellor does, and the breadth of work that they need to undertake to provide a diagnosis to patients. That's something that's misunderstood. When you talk to a policymaker or somebody who's making a decision with respect to healthcare, they think a counsellor is somebody that a person with a condition goes and sits in front of for an hour to discuss their challenges. And while that is a part of what genetic counsellors are doing, there is so much more than that. To sit with a diagnostic counsellor when it comes to the delivery of a diagnosis for a genetic disease, it requires time with the patient affected, it requires time with their family, individually or collectively, depending on where the diagnosis has been given. We really need to start looking at how we develop tools in order to be able to emphasize the importance of genetic counselling, because from what I've heard, and certainly what I've witnessed as a patient myself, but across Europe, is we have too few, and it's really that link point between the patient and the clinician, and it's a really important aspect of all that we do.
And what are the main advances of the network, do you think?
The advantages of this network are immense. When we conceived of developing European reference networks, maybe 15 years ago within the patient community and the clinical and scientific community, we worked as a collective in Europe to try to develop ways in which 6,000 to 8,000 rare diseases could find a home, and the ERN is the perfect opportunity. It provides opportunities for multi-stakeholder groups to work together to find solutions for complex issues that require consensus. But it also allows groups that within the rare disease community to work with each other and refer back to different groups that may not be in your disease speciality, but have an important influence and an important role to play in dealing with a patient with an inherited retinal disease. You know, because of course within the area of IRDs we also have syndromic conditions which can be very debilitating and need the expertise of other clinicians in other spaces. So the opportunity to work together within a very structured framework is very important. The European Commission talks about structured collaboration all of the time. The European Reference Network for Rare Disease is the most important manifestation of that. What I think we need to do as a collective within the community now is to really show the benefits and the advantages of working together to improve the flow of funding from the European Commission to these groups, because the work they are doing is phenomenal and has huge potential for the delivery of healthcare right across the board in all areas, not only in Europe but also in other regions into the future. So it's a really step in the right direction for the future of healthcare.
And in your dream, what would ERN-EYE look like in 10 years?
The ERN-EYE in 10 years, what would it look like? Would it look much different? I think it probably won't look much different insofar as what you will see is people who are working together for a common goal. Those goals will change in 10 years, and I hope that what we are talking about as problems now will be solutions then, and we'll probably be dealing with other problems and other issues that we will work to deal with collectively and successfully. I think the whole concept of networking centres of expertise will become the norm. I'd like to think that across the different disease areas there will be a lot more interaction. I'd love to see a situation on a personal level, coming from a very small country off the coast of Europe, to see more small countries with their patient populations having access to high technology interventions and the opportunity, most importantly, for a speedy, accurate diagnosis of their condition so that they can live their best lives independently.